Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witch's Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch BookTube. I am so excited to be back. I think this is going to be the very first video of January of the new year. As many of you know, I took a break towards the last month of last year just to kind of sink into the quiet time and the dark and do some revisioning for the Witch's Box and my life in general for this next new year and new decade. So you will probably be getting glimmerings of what that produced for me and for all of us in the months to come. In any case, we're back, and I'm so glad to be back because it feels like this is one of the parts I love most about having the Witch's Box. Although I have to find different languaging for that because I say that I think just about everything I do with the Witch's Box, but the reading and the sharing and basically just spending my time talking about books is kind of one of the biggest joys of my life. I'm not gonna lie. But I also love so many other parts of what it means to be part of this world called the Witch's Box and all that it entails. That, yeah, I probably have to come up with something different to say about it other than I just really love that I'm here. I'm doing this again with you all, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the books that I'm reading and sharing with you. And there are quite a lot of books coming in the weeks and months and the rest of this year to come, so I'm excited about that. So today we're going to be talking about a book by Sharon Blackie. It's called Foxfire, Wolfskin, and Other Stories of Shape-Shifting Women. This is a gorgeous cover. It's a hardcover book, sturdy. It's a pretty decent size. This is the spine, the back. This is beautiful. And I love, if you can see the font and just the way it looks like it was watercolor painted on. Love it. Let me really quickly get a couple of things out of the way. Let me read to you the bio really quick. Dr. Sharon Blackie is an award-winning writer and internationally recognized teacher whose work sits at the interface of psychology, mythology, and ecology. Her first nonfiction book, If Women Rose Rooted, became a word-of-mouth ecofeminist bestseller across the UK and North America. Her second, The Enchanted Life, offered insights into the art of belonging and the everyday magic that comes from deepening our connection to the natural world. Her work has been translated into multiple languages. Foxfire, Wolfskin, and Other Stories of Shape-Shifting Women is her first collection of short stories. All are either reimaginings of older tales or contain characters, beings, and motifs which appear in older tales. So one of the things that I did in December was really just read a lot. What I needed from December was a lot of quiet, some slowing down. There had been a lot of chaos, good chaos, just a lot of activity that kind of built up to December. And so for me, it was about doing the things that really nourished me and would help me recharge. I think that that's important for all of us. I think it's important to do it regularly, if not daily, then at least weekly. But definitely when a year cycle comes to its close, it's important to just take a moment, right? One of the things, as you must know by now, that really charges me and nourishes me is reading. And so I just kind of grabbed a bunch of books and just started reading without any agenda around what video I had to make about it. And so I just read, and now I'm kind of catching up with some of those readings in terms of what is it that I want to share with you from the readings that I did in December. This is one of those books, but she is one of those authors. I read 3 of her books back to back, and it was medicine. I don't even know how to explain it to you other than it's the same experience that I had when I read this book that I spoke to you all about months and months and months and months and months ago. I believe it was maybe last spring of 2019 that I shared this book with you, and it's by Sandra Ingerman and Lynn Roberts. This was a beautiful book and different than the books that I'm reading by Sharon Blackie, because by no means is Sharon Blackie a shaman. She's not speaking about shamanism. The through line through all 3 books that I've read by her so far is connection. The second 2 that I'll be sharing with you in later videos are about connection to nature, place, and land. But this book, such a long preamble, but this book is the deep connection to soul through our mythologies and our stories. This is very similar to the experience that you have when you read Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This book was beautiful. It's a retelling of some, at least I would say that I recognized maybe 75% of these stories as older myths that have been told in different ways in the past. She does a little bit of a retelling, a revisioning of what those could be now for modern times, even though the story is still fantastical and mythological and magical. This kind of writing and this kind of sharing is not necessarily for everyone. I have definitely met people who just don't relate to it or feel as nourished by these stories as I do, and some other people that I know do. So I recognize that. If mythology and retelling and learning from parables and seeing your soul journey through these mythologies is not something that feeds you, this is not going to be a book for you. For me, what this book was just, it was just nourishing. I sat there and I read story after story. I love the differences. There is a story in here that is very much, it's to me, it was a complete retelling of the sealskin story that most of us, the Selkies and the sealskin story that we've heard often. I know that Clarissa Pinkola Estes tells the story in different ways. I'm pretty sure that this is true. Sharon Blackie, in another one of her books that I read, and I think it was If Women Rose Rooted, she tells the story of the sealskin and the selkie in that. But it's a foxskin story here that's a little different, but it's a retelling. And it's such a powerful story for the spiritual trajectory of a woman's life, her liberation, things that we do to stifle and mute our truth, our true wild magical nature in order to fit into a paradigm that is not meant for our souls. That kind of story in mythological terms, to me, really gives us a different entry point into understanding ourselves and the arc of our spiritual story. Listen, I don't know, I feel like what this was for me was a beautiful book to sit down and just read in chunks, one story at a time, while it was almost like a meditation. So I'd read them, I'd sit with them, they'd affect me. Some of them were very emotional for me. Some of them were just like, oh, I know what that's about, right? You have these connections that are about who we are archetypally, who we are genetically, ancestrally, lineage-wise. These are stories that have been reverberating down our ancestral lines for generations, and they speak to a deeper, older part of our spiritual existence within us that's ancient, that's beyond our age. So what can I say? I love this. I thought it was beautiful. It's the kind of book, so for instance, for me, Women Who Ran with the Wolves or Women Who Run with the Wolves, that book took a long time for me to read because there is a lot going on in that book. This feels like that book, only quicker to get through. Is that a goal? I don't know. Does it need to be a goal to get through a book quickly? I don't know, but it was. And I want to read to you really quickly what the titles of these stories and mythologies are that she shared. She also, in the very back, has a reference section that tells you which story each of those stories that she shares with you is a reimagining of, with some notes and information on that, which I thought was really beautiful and very helpful and always incredibly informative. So these are the titles of the stories that she shares: Wolfskin, The Last Man Standing, The Bogman's Wife, Foxfire, Meeting Baba Yaga, The Water Horse, Snow Queen, The Saturday Diary of a Fairy Melusine, The Madness of Miss, I Shall Go into a Hare, The Weight of a Human Heart, Flower Face, No Country for Old Women. And then she's got notes and acknowledgments at the end. Get this book. This is a beautiful winter read. It feeds a part of you that needs a connection to who you've always been throughout all of time in a way that is easy and telling and incredibly wise, and gives you a completely different lens through which to see what your spiritual journey is about. Get the book. I fell in love with Sharon Blackie. I really did. The other two books that I'll share with you in the next few weeks, couple of months, were also really beautiful and nourishing in this particular way, in the way that I felt nourished by the book by Sandra Ingerman and Lynn Roberts. It doesn't speak to the concreteness that we often talk about on this channel, right? It's not about spells. It's not about how to be a witch in 1, 2, 3 steps. It's not about different traditions and the cultural context for different traditions. It's not about that. It speaks to something that, to me, you will absolutely be hearing more about this year, which is the spirituality of being a witch, which is more than and deeper than and wider reaching than how to do a spell in 5 steps. Do you know what I'm saying? It speaks to connection and what that looks like, what a mindful life looks like. And we don't really give a lot of airtime to that, and we will be doing that here this year for sure. So when I cover the next 2 books that I read by her, you'll be hearing more about that for sure. So this was a 4-star for me. It was just an incredible book. I recommend it. I'll link to all of this below. If you've read this, if you read her work, please let me know in the comments below. Share with me of any other authors who are doing these kinds of reimaginings of old myths. I think that this kind of reading is really important. And it's also great for the winter. We're still in the winter. There's something really great about cold weather, hot drinks, and reading the myths of our lives. I really think that it's a beautiful thing to be doing. So here it is. Sharon Blackie, Foxfire, Wolfskin, and Other Stories of Shape-Shifting Women. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Get the book. And I will see you again soon.